Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We're Screwed. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about the Department of Education. Now, as we record this, they announced today that they are firing half of the workforce of the Department of Education. I think it was like 130,000 people or something that they're firing. Uh, that's a start. As you know, Trump he campaigned on getting rid of the Department of Education completely. And a lot of people have a lot of different thoughts on that. I happen to agree 100% with it. I've been saying this for years and years and years. And it's not really because of the teachers union, although that's one of the problems. But the main problem is it's not effective. It doesn't work. And what we need to do in this country, in my view, is we need to concentrate on the things that work. And if things aren't working, we need to either fix them or we need to get rid of them. There's no sense in spending all the money that we spend on the Department of Education. And I mean, we spend more than anybody else in the world on education. And we're ranked last all the time. That means little pissant countries that don't even have indoor plumbing rank higher than us in education. That's pretty damn sad. That's pretty damn sad. Now, the problem with having the Department of Education is the government can't really do anything right. They screw up everything they do. You surround something with a big old bureaucracy and it just gets all screwed up. And that's what always happens. And then you got the problem of teaching all of these leftist ideologies instead of teaching what you're supposed to be teaching in school. You shouldn't be talking about, gender stuff and all that kind of crap in school. You ought to be learning science and math and history and the important stuff. Back when I went to school, you actually learned stuff. It wasn't like it is today. And I think by sending it back to the states, I think you're going to get a lot better result in most states. Now, you're still going to have, the blue states are still going to be screwed because the problem is they concentrate on shit that ain't important. Instead of teaching what they should teach in school, they're teaching dumb stuff that doesn't make any sense. And so there's still going to be states that are going to rank very, very low, and they're not going to do well. But for the majority of states, they're going to do a lot better job than the government does now, in my view. And that's kind of the point. That's what the founders envisioned. That was what this country was supposed to be. According to our Constitution, all power is not expressly given to the federal government in the Constitution reside with the states. And if it can be local instead of state, that's even better. You want it as close to the people as you can, right? And in all reality, the only thing our federal government is actually supposed to be doing is securing the borders, providing a military to protect us from invasion, and regulating interstate commerce. That's really all our federal government is for. We shouldn't have this massive federal government that does all these things that it does. None of that shit is constitutional. So getting rid of the Department of Education helps, one, because we'll get better results. Two, it'll save us a hell of a lot of money. And that is important. Now, we'll still be giving federal money to states to run education, I'm sure. But it will save us a lot of money on employees and stuff like that. And that's important because we're closing in pretty quickly on $40 trillion of debt. And I don't know if people understand how bad that is, but we are very, very close to complete economic collapse and bankruptcy. Now, you'll never really fully go bankrupt because you can print your own money, but your money ain't going to be worth nothing. It's happened over and over and over again in history. It's not like it's something that's never happened. I mean, look at the Weimar Republic. It happened there, where they would literally get paid for a day's work at lunchtime because by the end of the day, the money you would have got paid for that day is almost worthless. And they would literally take wheelbarrow loads of paper currency to buy like a single egg or a loaf of bread. That's how crazy it got. And what happens is it just collapses and nobody will accept the money anymore. And the way it's going to work here soon, if we don't fix this shit, is we're just not going to be able to borrow anymore. Because the people that lend us the money will say, you know what? I don't think I'm going to lend the United States any more money because I don't think their asses can pay me back. Because all they're doing is paying interest on that. They're not paying me back. So I'm not going to give them any more. Now, that's other countries that loan us money, but it's also bondholders. When you buy like savings bonds and stuff like that, that finance that debt. And if they don't have backing for the debt, they just print the money any damn way. And that's what causes massive, massive inflation and massive problems. Okay? So we're at the point now where we're right on the edge. There's a reason why they've got Doge in there doing what they're doing. There's a reason why we're cutting so severely, because we're literally on the verge of going under as a country. And it's shameful. It's shameful that we kept voting people in that kept spending this kind of money. And we have sacrificed our children and our grandchildren and their children's futures. Because they're the ones who are going to have to pay all this back. They're the one that's going to be saddled with this enormous debt. And it's immoral, you know? That's why I don't understand why there's so many protests and stuff. And people are so pissed off at Elon for going in and trying to cut stuff out of the government and save us some money. It's crucial. You've got to do this. This isn't a case of, well, I don't agree with Trump, so I'm not going to support this. You need to pull your heads out your asses. If this is not done, we are going to collapse. Period. We owe more money than we have. Let's say in your family, let's say you do pretty good for yourself, and let's say you make like $150,000 a year. So you got a fairly comfortable life in most parts of the country. Now in California, where old boy lives, you might be able to afford a trailer or something with that kind of money. I mean, that's not big money in California, but in most areas of the country, that's a decent living. Okay, so let's even say you're further than that. Let's say you make $200,000 a year, right? To make it a nice round number. $200,000 a year. You feel pretty good about yourself. You're successful. But if you spend $400,000 a year, that means every year you're going $200,000 in debt. Now, what's going to happen to you if you keep doing that? You're going to end up bankrupt. You're going to end up with all kinds of bills. You're going to end up losing your car, losing your house. They're going to foreclose on you. You're going to be screwed. You're going to wake up one morning and the repo man done took your car away. That's what's going to happen to you if you keep spending like that, way more than you make. Now, you can screw around for a while with credit cards, right? You can keep getting credit cards to charge to make sure that I got to pay this off or they're going to take my stuff. Let me put all of this on the credit card. Okay, now I need a credit card to pay that credit card payment. You can do that for a while. But eventually your credit rating gets to the point where nobody will give you one anymore. And then it's inevitable. You're going to collapse. You're going to go through bankruptcy. You're going to lose everything. Okay? It's no different as a country. We cannot continually run up debt. Now, we can run up a lot more than you can as a country. We can do it more than a normal family can do. But it's the same principle. You can't just keep borrowing money and running up a massive debt and then not pay it back. Because what's going to happen is nobody's going to loan you money anymore. And then what are you going to do? Then you're screwed. Do you realize that we pay more per year just on the interest of our debt? Not even touching the principal. Right? We're not paying back a single penny of that debt yet. We're just paying money to cover the interest payments of it. And that what we're paying every year just for interest is more than we spend on defense. All of our military, all of our bases, all of our weapon systems, all of our planes, tanks, bullets, everything. Our entire defense budget is less than the interest payment every year for the debt. And we spend more on defense than anybody does in the world. That should tell you how severe this has gotten. So I'm all for getting rid of the Department of Education, 100%. Get rid of it. It doesn't work. It's stupid. It's dumb. Don't do it. If you ran a company and you had a division that was responsible for whatever, let's say you make widgets, and this division is responsible for the marketing of said widgets in order to make a profit. And if every single quarter, not only did you not sell enough widgets to break even, but you spent more on marketing than it costs to run the rest of the company, and you're still not selling any of your widgets. Now, how long would you allow that to go on before you said, hey, wait a minute, man, this department's bullshit. Fire everybody in it. Get rid of it. This marketing department is not working. We need to get rid of everybody. We need to approach this a different way because we're spending more to market this stuff than it costs us to run the rest of the company, and we're not even breaking even. That's what's happening with the Department of Education. We're spending a tremendous amount of money, and we're coming in last every time. People just keep getting dumber and dumber and dumber. Do you know that there's some counties in this country where not a single student is proficient in math? Zero. None. That's crazy. Do you know that there's people that go through the school system in a lot of these inner cities and they graduate and they can't read? Now, does that sound like success to you? Do you know that the test when our founders were walking the streets back in the 17 and 1800s, do you know that the test that they had to take to leave elementary school, what they called primary school back then, do you know the test they had to pass to leave that? A lot of our college students today can't pass. That's how much we've fallen in education. That elementary school students back then were more educated than we are now. They knew more. Do you think it's a coincidence that they have to put warning labels on everything now? Where you pick up like a Tide Pod or something and it says do not eat? Now, why did they do that? Is it because they're afraid of being sued? That's what a lot of people will say. The old McDonald's coffee thing where the person took the McDonald's coffee and spilled it in their lap and got third-degree burns, that old lady, and so now they had to put caution hot on it. I would say no. I would say it's because, for whatever reason, a whole generation of idiots decided it'd be really fun to eat Tide Pods. So they did, and they made TikTok videos about it. So Tide actually had to come out and put a statement out and say, hey, don't eat these. It'll make you sick. It's not a good idea. Now, if we had a functioning education system, do you think we'd have to tell people not to eat laundry detergent? That would seem pretty obvious, wouldn't it? Now, we all knew people growing up that were just kind of dumb people, right? They're Democrats today. That's how they vote today. But back in elementary school, they didn't vote because they were just kids. But we knew they were stupid. But even those dumb people back then wouldn't be eating laundry detergent. We knew better. They might be eating glue or something like that over the quarter, but they don't eat laundry detergent. But you got people to do that today. There's some dumb stuff that goes on in this country. And I think it's because we don't teach people the right stuff anymore. You know, when they do those man on the street type interviews, right? Where they walk up to randos on the street and they ask them questions. And they're really, really easy questions like, who's the vice president? Or what are the three branches of government? Right? If the president and the vice president dies, who takes over? Simple questions that Elementary school kids should be able to answer because we're taught that stuff in elementary school, right? It should be easy. Grown ass adults have no idea. No idea. You got grown ass adults who couldn't even tell you who the vice president of the United States was when they did the interviews. That's crazy. But you ask those same people, right? You say name 3 branches of government, they can't do it. But if you say name 3 genders, they can do it. Name 3 beers, they can do it. Name 3 rappers, they can do it. So it's not a comprehension or a retention issue. It's an education issue. We're not teaching those people the stuff that they need to learn to be successful. Why should there be an inner city school that has metal detectors, teachers that don't give a shit, and fights and knifings and shootings and all kinds of crazy stuff happening every year, where the kids can't learn anything? They go in there, they don't have a chance in hell. Because the teachers don't give a shit. They're just trying to get out of there alive. The schools are failures. So then you got Republicans come in and say, we want to give school choice to the parents. We want the money that we spend on a public education as taxpayers, we want that money, instead of going to that school that's failing, to go right to the parents so that they can choose which school they want to send their kid to. And if they want to send their kid to a charter school or a private school or whatever that money will pay for, a better school, so their kid has a chance at a good education and a life, they should be allowed to do that. Now, to me, that's a brilliant idea. I don't see what's wrong with that. But then the Democrats will say, no, you're not allowed to do that. And that's a real world example. That's happened in damn near every city. They are 100% against school choice. They want to force your children to stay in those shitty public schools where they can't even learn, where the majority of the graduating class can't even read. And then they're surprised when these kids are stupid. They're surprised when they get out of high school and they end up going to prison because they're out there robbing and selling drugs and shit like that. Well, if you're not giving them an education, you're not giving them an opportunity to go out and get an actual job that can pay the frickin' bills and give them a life, what choice do they have? Should they just sit in a corner quietly and starve to death? No, they're going to put food on the table. And they're going to do it the way they know how to do it. They're not given a chance. And that goes straight to the school, man. That's the school's fault. That's education's fault. That's the Department of Education's fault. Because if they were more in the area, right, if they had boots on the ground where they could actually check in on these shithole schools, they would say, hey, wait, there's a problem here. These kids aren't learning nothing. We got to do something about this. That's where having it on the state level, or even better, the local level, makes all the difference in the world. Because those people, it's their kids that are going to those schools. Those people are on the ground there. They can say, hey, this school here, everybody knows that school's garbage. So let's revitalize that school. Let's get rid of all these teachers. Let's get rid of all this stuff that doesn't work. Let's figure out how to make this work. Much better plan. And the other great thing about getting rid of the Department of Education is now you have 50 different states. So you have 50 different laboratories where they can experiment and they can try different things. Maybe one state says, you know what, class sizes are too big. That's the problem. We're not able to give better, individual attention to the students. So let's shrink class sizes and see if that works. Another place might say, well, I think that the answer is more computers. If we have more computer learning, then kids will do better. Well, then they might try that. So then it might work here. It might not work here. And then other states can say, you know what, Wyoming did this one really cool thing. And it seems to be working for them. Let's try that. It gives more freedom to be able to experiment and figure out a better way. Whereas when you have one top-heavy bureaucracy there is no experimentation. There is no progress because nobody wants to do anything. It's just the way it's always been. So that's the way it's going to be now. I'll tell you one really crazy thing before I wrap up. This doesn't have to do with the Department of Education, but it's weird. In order for a government employee to be able to retire, they have to fill out the paperwork and everything, right, and submit it. Okay, no big surprise there, right? Makes sense. But then that paperwork, instead of being digital, where they can just do it on the computer and send it off, and then next day they're retired and they can go home and collect their pension, that paperwork has to travel to a mine. I'm not kidding you, an underground mine. It has to be hand carried and put on an elevator, travel down to the bottom of that mine, a long way on this elevator, and then be walked into the department that actually handles the paperwork by hand. So only so many people are allowed to retire at a time in the government because you have to hand deliver each set of paperwork to the bottom of a mine. That it gets filled out and then sent back up the elevator and hand delivered back to the department so that they can process it. How stupid is that? That's the kind of dumb shit that our government is doing that we need to fix and get rid of. There's so many ways to save money. There's so many ways to fix things and make them run better. So I would say, even if the guy that you don't like is in office, if he's doing stuff to help the country and it's making things better, just chill. Because if we don't do the things that we're doing, the country's going to collapse. And that's the honest God truth. Okay? I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and see what he has to say about this, and then I'll be back after he's done. Go ahead, brother.
Well, we're going to do this one quick because this one went a little longer than usual. If that's what helps us get money to get rid of the Department of Education, then I guess we're going to have to. I don't think we're going to get rid of the whole thing. It's going to be half of it. And yes, we should, because there's a lot of stuff that's been going on for years, especially in California, is known for LA, especially that, they found out like the union, and they'll have the parents pay for everything, and they got everything in a warehouse somewhere, and they're making the parent, instead of they're doing it, they don't want to spend their money, so they make the parents do it, because then they get more money with the union, so with the teachers union. Now, I don't have a problem with teachers or anything, but I do agree with people should be able to pick what schools their kids want to go to. We used to be able to do that. Public schools have already been proven they're not working, man. I mean, there's all kinds of issues. Always have people work there. We have somebody that works on Staring into the Abyss with us. Tells the Abyss. He's on my crew. He works for the schools out there in Apple Valley. He's a security guard and counselor, and he goes through a lot of stuff. He even had issues breaking up fights. He got it. Somebody tried to assault him. Assaults some of the other proctors and stuff like that after school, or they'll jump them and stuff like that. All kinds of stuff happens. It's crazy stuff going on anyway at public schools. So some people don't want their kids. My kids are all grown up, so I don't care. I'm unless I have grandkids, then I get it. But I mean, I would worry too for all the stuff that's going on. Look at all goes on there. All these fights, all people getting beat up, attacked, and then people put it on TikTok and make it as a fucking joke, and think it's funny. And you see everything. If you go on TikTok, you'll see a bunch of fights in schools. Teachers beating up kids beating up teachers, beating up parents. Crazy shit happening, man. Drugs, all kinds of shit. And that's been going on, I'll be honest, since the 90s, since I was going high school. Same shit was going on there. Fights, getting jumped. It wasn't as bad as it was now because people didn't have video cameras, or it would have been. School was crazy even back then, but I lived in California. I don't know how it was going back there in where James was in Virginia. He went all over the place because he was in Germany. So he was in the military. I think it was in Illinois. So I don't know. It might have been a little different there. But California was rough, man. And I was in a rural area till it started building up. And now it's not. It's a city now. But even then, had issues. California's a crazy place. I'll be honest, from Pennsylvania to moving to California, I got jumped the first day of school, bro. When I was no, 7. That's how crazy California is. I got picked on, and that was in the 80s. In the fucking 80s, dude. 86. And that's how it was going. It was bad here. Inner cities were bad. It's always been, but now it's just got everywhere. It's just no one gives a fuck. You're going to get in college or not, you're just going to go get a job, and they won't even hire you if you are from college. It's like 50% almost. It's like 49% of people who went to college are not getting jobs. 51 or 52% are. They don't want to hire you because you got to pay you at a different rate. You know what you're doing, or they want you to lowball you. So that's why they changed the law where you can go work wherever you want. You don't have to sign a contract with somebody getting stuck on 150,000 and you get 200,000, but you had to wait 90 to 120 days or some dumb shit like that. No, you don't have to do that no more. You go and get the job the next day. That's why wrestling, they can't hold you anymore. You can't get you with those 30-day contracts anymore. You got to let them right then. They're done. They can go and work the next day after being released, not wait 90 days anymore. They made the new laws and shit. And I agree with that. Stuff like this, it's happening. That's why I'm going to cut this show a little shorter because, like I said, James went into real detail on this one. This was a good one. But I agree with a lot of it. I'm not going to say all Democrats and stuff because everybody votes different ways. Like here in California, we have Republicans that vote Democratic ways. I mean, that's why we're a blue state. So I'm just saying that it's just there's a lot of stuff that's getting blown. Money needs to go to us, and we need to get out of debt because he's right. If we keep going this way, we're drowning. We're done. I don't care what anybody says. You can make as much money as you want. It's not going to mean anything anymore. That's why people are buying gold, platinum, and silver because they think that's going to happen one day. So money's not going to mean shit no more. It's just going to be worthless. 2, we get a new kind of government because that means the government's going to fall and something else is going to come. That's just what happens. It just gets replaced over time. Just look what happened to Rome. Look what happened to the the Egyptians. Sorry. Look what happened. They all fell. China at one time, they fell all over money, and it just happens. So that being said, that's all I got to say, brother.
Yeah, you asked how it was here in Virginia. Like we brought our rifles in our trucks to school. They would sit in a gun rack in our car. We never had any issues. You'd have fights every once in a while, but it wasn't that bad. The worst place I've ever been was when I lived in Illinois. That was bad. It was a little place called Mascoutah, right outside of St. Louis, and there was a big problem there with the KKK. A bunch of my friends were black guys from base, and the farm boys there from Illinois were not fans of the blacks, and the KKK was a big deal there. And every year they would find like bodies in the cornfield. It was that kind of thing when they would do the harvest, and so they would come and they would attack them at school and everything. And like that's the reason I have a beard. I mean, I like having a beard, but I got right through here. You're not gonna be able to see it because of all the hair, but right through here, I got laid open with a knife, and my face was hanging down by the KKK. I don't know if you can see this scar here going all the way down. See that? Shovel over top my dome because I was laying over a black friend of mine while they were trying to beat him to death with shovels, and I caught one in the head. I don't know if you can see this scar that runs all the way down here. That's another knife attack where I had to block the knife. Yeah. And it's kind of funny. Everybody calls Republicans racist, and they say the South is racist. I didn't have any issues with the KKK or anything like that in the South. It wasn't until I went to deep blue Illinois, Democrat state, and they were literally still burning crosses in yards and attacking and trying to kill my friends. And almost all the scars I have on my body, I got fighting against the KKK in deep blue Illinois. That's the worst place I've ever been in my life as far as violence in school. It was ridiculous. Now, when I lived in San Antonio, that was bad too, because San Antonio is close to the border. It's not right on the border, but it's close enough to where you have a lot of illegals there, and there was a lot of Mexican drug gangs and stuff there at that time, and they would chase you home from school. And I remember a buddy of mine, he didn't run when I told him to run because a bunch of them were coming. And I said, man, we got to go run. And I ain't running. He stood there like a dumbass. And it was a whole group of them, like 10 or 12 of them. And they ran up and they had a brick in their hand and they threw that brick and hit him right here on the temple, busted his eye open, just blood pouring. And then just we commenced to fight. And I'm swinging for everything I got, knocking little Mexicans on their ass. I grab my friend, throw him on my shoulder, and run as fast as I can to get us out of there. Now, luckily, they didn't chase us because there's no way I could have outran them. But I got him home. We took him to the hospital, and it took 17 stitches to close his head up where they had beat his head in with a brick. That's the kind of shit that happens, man. It's not cool. Not cool at all. That place was bad, but it didn't happen all the time. Illinois was worse because Illinois was daily, every single day. You had the KKK there, and you had people in the school that were students whose daddies were in the KKK, and they were going to be in the KKK. And so you had them literally jumping black guys in the school that my friends that I played football with and went lived on base with me, went to that school, and they would jump them 10, 15, 20 at a time and just kick them and beat them down and leave them bloody heaps. And they'd end up in the hospital, you know. And that's literally where I got all the scars on my body is from trying to protect them and getting beat down with them. You know what I mean? Because that's the kind of guy I am. Even if I can't take it, like even if I can't win the fight, if there's 30 of you, it doesn't matter. If I can't win the fight, if you jump my friend, I'm going to stay and get my ass whipped too. I'm going to give you everything I got. You know what I mean? And I'm lucky I survived some of them. But that's just an answer to the question of that old boy asked about. He didn't know how it was in Virginia because I've been all over the place. Germany was wonderful. Germany was great. The education was top notch. The only problem I had in Germany was while I was over there, there was a serial killer that was active. And he would dress as a clown. And he would grab kids when they're walking home from school and take them off into the woods and kill them. And it was a big deal. Like they had like special meetings about it in school with all the students. They would tell us, you got to watch out for this. And all. Back then, it wasn't like you had a bus that took you home. You know what I mean? Because we lived in a little place called Vogelway, and Dad actually worked at Ramstein Air Force Base. But Vogelway is this little base community that's off base, and we went to a school within walking distance of Vogelway. So you would leave your housing and you would walk to school every day. And we're just little dudes, man. We weren't old at all. And yeah, he would just grab you and take you into the woods. And it's kind of funny because when I came back stateside after we left Germany, we went to Illinois. And I remember turning on the TV. And first of all, I'd never seen a commercial before because they didn't have commercials over there. They had like a half hour at the end of the night before it went to the boo for the night, right? Where they would have this little cartoon character that would do all the adverts for the day. But they didn't play commercials during shows back then. And so I'd never seen a commercial. So I thought, wow, what are these little TV shows? This is so cool. You know what I mean? But I remember when I turned the TV on, the Bozo show was on. They were doing like the grand prize game where they take the ping pong ball and they throw it into the buckets. And I remember seeing that clown, and everybody thought that clown was so cool and Bozo was so awesome. But what I thought when I saw him was, fuck, there's that serial killer. You know what I mean? Get them kids away from that guy. He's going to put them in those buckets. So that's a kind of a funny story. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Close the fucking thing down. It doesn't work. Give it back to the states. Give it back to the local. And for God's sake, please vote for school choice. You got to push that issue. If you live in the inner city and you got one of those shithole schools, man, you guys have got to push that issue because the Republicans want to do that. You got to push it, especially in these blue states where the Republicans don't have a chance in hell of winning. It's up to you to either vote Republicans in so they can do that or to pressure the Democrats that run those cities to allow school choice. Because unless you have a school that is going to give your kid a chance at life, you're just dooming them, man. They're going to have a terrible life. And I'm not saying you got to go to college and all that shit. I think trade schools are a much better option for the majority of people than colleges are, because in a trade school you can learn a skill that pays a lot. I mean, if you're an electrician or something like that, dude, you make way over $100,000 a year. I mean, you make good money, you know. And trade schools are always the way to go, in my opinion. College is way too expensive, and anymore they just teach you nonsense there too. And you get out of college and you're working at freaking McDonald's making $8 an hour or something because they don't pay nothing. Because too many people have gone and they don't need the people with degrees anymore. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. As always, up to you to make up your own mind, and we'll catch you on the next one. Till we speak to you again. Love, many, trust for you, and do harm to none. Old boy's doing like fucking hand signals. I mean, like got me from the side of my eye. God loves you, and so do we. Bye bye.